Hey guys, gals, and non-binary pals, welcome back to Brownlow Books. I am continuing this week with Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. Blanket warning, spoilers. Leave if you don't want them. Alright, first off, I'd like to make a complaint about the cover. This wallpaper is green. It is not green in the book. It is described as a pinkish mauve, basically. Multiple times. Calling it green and putting it green on the cover, I don't understand that. Aesthetics, I know. And she mentions a green wallpaper, but then she's like, that's not what this is. And I'm like, so it's very clearly not green? You know? Leaving that there. Okay, moving on. You guys know what it's about. You'll look it up. It's fine. I have this little tab in the top here. You can see it's pretty near the front. I like to tab where I think I've figured out the mystery of what's going to happen in a book, if it's a mystery or thriller or whatever, to see if I'm right and see how far and how early I figured it out. Yeah, this little tab's on page 65. I think 65-ish. It's in the 60s. I was like 90% right. 90% of what I thought. Like, let's just say this. It's not fucking rocket science. Alright? She mentions mold spores growing on a picture of a mushroom, and there is a mysterious patriarch who mentions eugenics like the first fucking time he meets her and comments on her dark skin. And I'm like, okay, so he's gonna be creepy as fuck, first of all. And it's gonna be, you know, there's gonna be some, like, sentient mushroom eldritch god that, like, inhabits the house or someone in the house and, like, feasts on their souls, basically, is, like, what I was, like, imagining, and I'm gonna just say I'm not far off, am I? That's what happens when there's a graveyard on your property. Going on to that, the Gothic part of this is done really well. Like, I'm not a horror reader, right? I've said this before. So, like, me figuring out most of what was happening, not knowing all of the tropes, I was kind of, like, pretty proud of myself. I mean. But, the Gothic is done really well. It's very British. Very British. But it is a good Gothic. That being said, this part good, this part not so much. Really, the Gothic is good, but I wanted it to have more of the Mexican in it. Like, it felt like it was missing something, and I think that thing that it's missing is the Mexican. Mexican Spanish influence to it. Like, you could almost take this book and make it set at literally any place that the British colonized and exploited an indigenous people in. You could make an Australian Gothic. You could do Kenyan Gothic. Like, for me, it wasn't quite Mexican enough for something called Mexican Gothic. Like, there's not even much... Was there any Spanish in this book? Other than, like, the names of places? Because there's, like, times where two characters are speaking Spanish back and forth. And so I expected, like, to have some Spanish words maybe thrown into that to, like, indicate that they're speaking Spanish again, and rather than just, like, saying they're speaking Spanish. But, like, even a guy responds with, yes. Like, that would have been the perfect time to just see, you know? Just a little bit to, like, remind you, like, right, they're speaking in Spanish. Right, gotcha, you know? It was just, the influence wasn't there, like, other than, you know, the description of our main character and, like, the clothes she wears, you would never really know that this was, like, 1950s Mexico. Like, it could have been almost any other time. Like, so I think that was something that was missing for me, because I kept reading it thinking, there's just something not quite fully developed for me. Like, I really enjoyed the writing. The writing is lovely. I have other books by her. I'm like, I'm great. I can keep those and read them. You know? The writing was fine. It was delightful at times. But, like, the plot wasn't quite enough for me. It wasn't, like, fully fleshed out. I didn't feel for any characters, really. And some of the characters, like, just felt, like, exceptionally weak. Like, her cousin, Noemi's gone to, like, investigate her cousin, right? And so her cousin Catalina is described as, like, being somewhat similar to her, but then she's just, like, this empty shell of a person here with, like, just little moments of, like, being normal, but not normal. And it just... like, I was reading some of the same characters over and over again, and it just was like, how is this guy different from the other guy? Like, are they any purpose whatsoever? Why are you telling me about them? Like, it's just, there was something missing. And it was something, I think, in deeper character development for some compared to others. And a general, like I said, I figured it out pretty early, and I am not a horror reader, right? So, like, the fact that I figured it out that early, I enjoyed reading it. I put this off for quite some time. I was like, I don't want to read this. Reading it for Canada Reads, obviously. But, like, I was just, like, putting it off. Like, this is not my thing. I don't want to read horror. But I felt like it wasn't too much horror. Like, this seems weird to say. It's Gothic. It is very dark and Gothic. Give it that. But, like, for horror, a horror tag on it, I expected more than what I got from it. Does that make sense? Thinking about it, I don't know. So yeah. I mean, it's good enough. It feels a little like Station 11 for me, where I was just like, I don't want to. This is fine. You know? So on Goodreads, it has over 286,000 ratings. It was a TikTok sensation, right? It was one of them. It is rated 3.68. And I kind of get that, because I just skimmed a couple of the reviews, and it really seems like people either loved it or hated it. And so you have a lot of 4- and 5-star reviews with an occasional 1 or 2, and then just a shit ton of 3s. There was a shit ton of 3s. Makes sense. But yeah, there were some people complaining that it wasn't fleshed out enough, and other people being like, oh my god, is anything gonna happen in it? Which I will give them. They're like, I was 2/3 through the book and still wasn't, like, what's going on? And I'm like, yeah, it very slow build, very quick resolution, almost too easy of a resolution, I want to say. But yeah, like, it was lacking in something. I'm not, like, 100% certain of what that something is, because it's going to be something different for every person, but, like, obviously, I'm not the only person who felt that out there, that there was something that wasn't quite, like, yes, that great, you know? So, yeah, I feel like a 3.68 rating is probably fair. We will talk more about this when I get to my listing of the Canada Reads. I got one more book to go, which you'll see next week, I guess. Alright, thanks for hanging out. I'll see you around next week.